Joining us now, Congressman, 5th District, Denver Riggleman, Republican incumbent, running for re-election for a second term. He's being challenged in a nomination fight with Bob Good. And, boy, this thing has gotten really ugly. It's another one of these rigged conventions that you keep getting in Virginia. And it's kind of amazing what they've done here. But Denver Riggleman has uncovered a thing or two. We want to get right to him. There was a piece of the Daily Caller the other day that is must-watch video. He is with us now. Denver, great to have you, man.
Hey, how you doing, John? Good morning.
Denver, never better, and thank you for joining us today. Look, I got to start with, before we get into politics and what we're doing in Virginia and what we're doing in Congress and the fact that Pelosi refuses to get you guys back to work, what is going on now in your race for renomination?
Oh, no. Well, we don't know what the actual election process is going to be now because it's such a convoluted process with, really a convention that you don't have the process to respond or be dynamic to anything outside of, these archaic rules, made by people that want to stay in power. And so what I've seen, though, is that right now we don't even know if there's going to be there's certainly not going to be an in-place convention. They don't want that because I would win that too. So now they're looking at some hybrid drive-through option, which I don't even know if it's legal at this point. And we're not sure. There hasn't been a decision yet. Here we are in May, not a decision on how to pick a candidate, or a nominee or Republican nominee, so it's pretty discouraging.
Somebody told me there's a meeting Monday in the so-called executive committee. By the way, we're also on Facebook Live. The so-called executive committee is going to choose the nominating process, true or false?
Yeah, I guess the committee has to vote on it. And, so the executive committee will come up with some other, weird way of doing things. And then the committee has to vote on it. And depending on, what happens with those committee members that are, sort of on the pay-to-play docket, we'll see how that goes.
So I understand that when I was talking to people yesterday, Denver Riggleman, they were saying that there was a proposal in the committee to move from a convention where 3,000 people gather. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do that, to a firehouse convention where no speeches or anything, but there's different polling places set up, and you go to these polling places as a delegate, and you vote for the candidate of your choice. You put it in a box or something. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I think that's one of the options that they have, is that this thing where, first of all, there's no credentials committee. There's no way to validate, who's voting, and which I find interesting. But the other thing, too, is that I don't think people realize that if you do something like this, committee chairs can just throw out voters indiscriminately based on really arbitrary criteria. And I think that's what I've been railing about since I came out from outside the political spectrum, John. You know that I am the true outsider. I'm a disruptor. I just find it absolutely astounding that this is the way that you would have a Republican nominee. And I wasn't involved in politics, much. I was actually, as you know, I was in counterterrorism and had my own companies and ran distilleries. And I'm a business owner. I'm a CEO. I'm a Virginian. And I'm a warfighter. I'm not a politician. And for people to pick candidates this way with a drive-through box where, in each county or one location where you can't really, a committee chair can just say, oh, these people can't vote because they didn't vote Republican in 1985. I've never seen anything like this. And I want to give you a number because I'm in numbers, statistics and data. Do you know that the Republican nominee of Virginia will be chosen by around 0.004 of the population of the 5th District, 0.4%. If it goes to a closed-door committee vote, it's 0.005% that will choose the Republican nominee for the 5th District. And if people start looking at numbers, data, FEC reports, what goes behind closed doors, I think they would see why Republicans have lost for the last 12 years with these people that have monetized conventions and really committee graft. And I think we have to stop it.
Well, Denver, look, there's no bigger advocate of getting rid of conventions than John Fredericks. I've been railing against them since I've been here. They are ripe for corruption. They get rigged all the time. There's professional convention riggers in Virginia that this is how they make their living. This is what their business is, rigging conventions. It tears the heart and soul out of the party. The fights are hand-to-hand combat. 50% of the people that leave every one of these conventions are pissed off. They're stupid. They're limiting. And they typically nominate candidates who can't possibly win in a general election. If you're the nominee, you're going to win by probably 10 to 15. If Bob Good is the nominee, polling suggests that he could get beat by whoever the Democratic nominee is. Because, look, he's not running a campaign. It's a rigged convention. Now, I want to get to some of the things that I saw on the expose that came out yesterday, Denver, if I could, on the Daily Caller, which shocked me. I mean, absolutely. Nothing surprises me, but this shocked me. So, basically, there was a meeting of the committee on Easter night. This is the executive committee of the 5th District. I want everybody to picture this. Sunday night, Easter night, there's a meeting. And a couple of the executive members, because of COVID-19 and no convention, you can't gather, have speeches, they want to change it to a primary, right? A legit primary. So
yeah, because there's and by the way, the state has the liability on that, and there was a primary for the Dems already and for the Senate Republicans, as you know. So why not just
so there's already a primary going on, right?
Absolutely.
So there's no cost involved. There's already a primary. You got the Dems there. You got a U.S. Senate primary in Virginia. June 23rd is the date. So what I understand is the lawyers for Bob Good, your opponent, the lawyers threatened $50,000 lawsuits to any committee member that voted to change the nominating process from a convention to a primary, and threatened them each with a $50,000 lawsuit if they voted in favor of it. True or false?
True, and it's even more benign than that. On the vote was for an option to have a primary, not to compel. So, and that if they voted for the option, that I would go fight for them, and the committee would go fight to say we want an option for a primary if all else falls through, because nobody wants a closed-door committee vote. Because John, you were there. You saw that maybe 7 or 8 people had actively worked for the Cynthia Dunbar campaign in 2018 and were allowed to vote on the floor as long as they told people they were corrupt, right? I mean, it's the worst method I've ever seen. And, of course, I mean, for me, listen, I'm unbeatable in a primary. Firehouse primary, any of that, I'm unbeatable. And they know that too. But we had to have an option for health and safety. And I just find it astounding that on Easter Sunday, we were voting for the option to have a primary based on the pandemic. That's it. It's that simple.
The option.
The option, not even to compel. It's just an option. And hours before that, a lawsuit drops from Bob Good's campaign, people that are on his campaign literature, his Facebook, on videos, on audio, where he welcomes them to the team, and says that they would sue any member who voted for the option for a primary during a health emergency, a national emergency, a state emergency, right, where there's nobody can gather, right? They voted for an option to have that, and they said they would sue each member for $50,000 apiece, which is really financial ruin for a lot of people. And now they have to go get lawyers for something, like this. And like I said on the video, this is worse than political ambulance chasing. This is now you've crossed a line in Virginia politics where you're saying, if you don't vote the way I want you to vote, I'm going to sue you. And not only that, I'm going to make up the reasons out of whole cloth. It's going to be fraudulent. And I just, it's these kind of people that we need to ask, are you honestly a Republican? Do you really believe in the freedom to assemble? Do you really believe that we should disenfranchise 99.9% of voters in a nominating contest? And they do, because this is how they make money. It's that simple. It's on FEC reports. But the real reason here is that they're so desperate to continue their paychecks, so desperate to do these things, that they'll do anything to win. It's not about the people. It's about, can I keep my paycheck coming in? And when people are desperate for that, that's what happens. And $50,000 apiece, and how do they know which members to name? How do they know the members that had always been pro-primary? And then to have a line in there, John, which I think is what shocked you, that anybody who voted yes, add them to the lawsuit. Do you remember? I mean, what? So
I read the lawsuit, and the way it was delivered, and by the way, it was delivered to all the committee members before the vote, and it was said, these are the people that we know are going to vote for it. We're going to sue them if they do vote for it, $50,000, and then we're going to add the names of anybody that votes in favor of having a primary option. And so that's lawsuit intimidation. So they'd go ahead and deliver that. I mean, if you really think about this, it's incredible. So they threaten a lawsuit, then they turn around, and several of the committee members, get this, people, the executive committee of the 5th District made up unit chairs and things of that nature.
A lot of Bob Good people, too. I mean, these are people that get paid,
Bob
too.
Good's friends, that's fine. You have friends. But several of them, I mean, this is mind-boggling. Several of them are paid campaign operatives for Bob Good. So they're on the committee. They're voting for the nomination process. They are paid campaign staff for Bob Good. They don't recuse themselves. They simply say, yeah, I'm paid staffer, so what? Because the rules allow it, which is, to me, mind-boggling as it is. They should recuse themselves. If you're elected a committee unit chair and you're voting on a nominating process and you're being paid by the guy, you're a paid campaign staffer by the guy that wants a certain process because it favors him, and you're the unit chair, but you're taking the campaign money as a paid operative, is there any person listening to me right now that thinks that is a good system, a wholesome system, a fair system? Or do you think that is totally corrupt? So they're suing people on one hand, and then they're paying them on the other hand. So you've got a lawsuit, and then you got graft. This is unbelievable, and this guy is running for Congress in the 5th District, and he's right in the middle of it. They don't want to have a primary because they'll get crushed. They don't want to have a firehouse, a legit firehouse primary, because they'll get crushed. They don't want to have a legit convention because they'll get crushed. So the only way they win is by narrowing it down to the most minimal people. What they would love to have is a vote in the committee, and then Bob can just hire the majority of the committee members. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, and I think part of it, too, is that the reason they had to sue for money is that he's been so bad in fundraising, John. For a guy who says he has grassroots support to give $30,000 in a quarter, and my guess was not only do they know they can't beat me really in any method, and the reason that they have to keep it so small, and then try to get the SEC to change the rules where committee members can act, committee chairs. Think about this. Okay, it's not just graft. Okay, it's not just corruption or pay to play. It's also then allowing a committee chair who might be on the payroll or might be connected to people on the payroll to pick who gets to vote and who doesn't. And so now you have this going on, so you got to even make it smaller, right? Now you're shrinking it to maybe, you're trying to get down to the hundreds. That's all you can do is go wrong, stay wrong. Lie about me as much as possible. Go wrong, stay wrong. But here's this is what's incredible to me. I think part of the reason they had to sue is because they have no money and they got to get paid. So now you have a guy who's only able to raise $30,000 a quarter. I outraised him 10 times. I was the biggest fundraiser. The Democrats out fundraised him. I mean, he's just not, for being a professional fundraiser. Maybe he probably wasn't a very good one. And so now we're looking at maybe they just needed money. And that's, again, everything goes back to, do they get paid? And if that's the way we're choosing nominees, I will not stand for it. Listen, if me and you, John, me and you have even disagreed in the past, we'll sit down and have a whiskey and talk about it. We've done it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm happy to talk policy with anybody. I'm happy to sit down with them. If you disagree with me, I can still be your friend. If we disagree over policy, I can still be your friend. What I will not stand for, I will not have a whiskey over somebody who actually tries to intimidate or threaten voters. That's not going to happen. I'm going to fight you on that hill, win or lose, to the end, because I'm a native Virginian. My background has always been fighting for what's right, regardless of the circumstances. And I'm not a pay-to-play guy, and I just find it appalling that this is the party. And there's a reason we've lost the last 12 years, John, and I think you're seeing the formula.
Well, the formula is graft and corruption and intimidation and limit the numbers and squeeze it down to nothing and have a back room with a bunch of people choosing the nominee. The reason for running at the beginning, other than to make money and get paid, the reason for running was that Denver's not conservative enough. Okay, well, the President of the United States has chosen Denver as one of his co-chairs in Virginia. He goes to the White House. He has a president's ear. President Trump has endorsed Denver. He sent tweets out on his behalf on multiple occasions. Denver has stood with the president on every major issue of the day. So if you support President Trump, you're going to support Denver Riggleman. But they don't say that, right? They just say Denver's not conservative. Well, define that. Oh, because Denver married a gay couple that worked in his campaign and was part of their wedding. Are you kidding me? That's the reason for running?
That's the reason.
And then they can't
It's
beat
corruption,
you,
civil
so they have to,
no.
so they have to steal the nomination, rig it, graft, corruption, intimidation, lawsuits. And then you wonder why, Denver. The Republican Party in Virginia is in a shambles, and it's a super minority, and we get our head handed to us election after election. You know why? Because it's constant shenanigans like this crap.
Yeah, it is crap, and I think people need to get involved. And I've always gone with the 3 C's, right, when I do my voting. It's the Constitution, my constituents, and my conscience, and I'll never change. But you talked about endorsements that I have across the board. You talked about everything that I've tried to do right. And I vote for the 5th. The only caucus I really belong to is the caucus of the 5th District. That is who I belong to. I live here. I work here. I have businesses here. My family is here. That's all I care about. And if we don't have people get involved that work for a living, that look at this as service, not as a career field, we're going to be in trouble. And there's only 4. I don't know if people realize, John. There's only 4 Republican representatives left in the House. We have a Democratic executive. A Democratic. We have a Democratic lieutenant governor. We have a Democratic AG. We have a Democratic Party that owns the state house, both sides, right? And so the Senate and the House. We have 2 Democratic senators. We have a democratically party-controlled House of Representatives. At what point do we wake up and say, we better be the party of liberty, we better be the party of deregulation, we better be the party that cares that everybody is a part of the Republican Party and they can live the life they want? If we're not the party that keeps the government out of our pocketbooks, our business, and our bedrooms, what are we? And if we're a party that wants other people to live the way that we want to live, that we see it myopically, or that they can't live that way, I just think the Republican Party will die. Civil liberties and religious liberties can live in the same space. We are Americans. We can have it all, but we got to have people who care more about how other people, their independence, rather than how they want other people to live. And that is really what it comes down to. And that's my life view. And you know me, John, if people don't like it and you want somebody who wants to control every movement that you have and the way that they win, doesn't matter. Listen, if the ends always justify the means, I'm going to go against you every time. It's just that simple.
Well, Denver, here's the bottom line. How do you win this race? Because a loss here would further the graft, the corruption, and the dishonesty that goes on in these conventions. So how do you win?
Through dragging everybody that you think needs to be dragged into the sunlight. And it's about disinfectant, facts, and truth. Disinfectant, facts, and truth. I did it, again, it was a miracle in that committee vote in 2018. To win by 1 vote with a district-hopping opponent like Cynthia Dunbar. Same team, by the way. Same team that ran Dunbar is running Bob Good. The tactics are the same. It's the exact same people. They got to get paid. It's just the same thing. The other thing, too, though, is that you connect with the voters, and I do in a way that nobody has in Virginia in a long time. And I don't tell people what they want to hear. I tell them the facts and the truth of what's going on, and I let them make their decisions. If people honestly want independent-minded conservatives, I'm their guy. It's that simple. And we have a strong campaign. We're pretty confident. Obviously, a primary, firehouse primary, normal convention now, we're really not worried about it. Our worries is always the corruption in the back room, so that's why we're going to have people monitoring this. And I'm going to, and I hate to do this, but I got to make sure that I have all of our strategies in place to fight corruption. And I will do what's necessary. I have the resources to do it. I will fight it. I will continue to tell the truth, and I believe facts and truth win in the end.
Denver, you have got to fight this. I mean, I went through a bunch of these just recently. The convention, I guess, in 2018 with Dunbar and Klein, where they wouldn't let me broadcast live and made me go up in the rafters, so without internet service, so that people couldn't know what was going on. I went through that. I went through the Chris Peace one, where Scott Wyatt, who's a delegate now, rigged that convention by changing it from a primary to a convention, and then as soon as it got changed and he made the decision, he filed. I mean, all this nonsense. It's just sickening. I got 2 texts, one from Steve in Richmond, who says, "Go Denver." He's a great congressman. Another one from Rufus, the Democrat in Richmond. He says, the Democrats send a big thank you to the 5th District leaders and corrupt Republicans. They've shown their true colors with their actions, respectively. Rufus the Democrat. By the way, we have a primary.
Yes, they do.
That's what the Democrats are saying.
Learned.
They're laughing at this.
Yeah.
Good,
well, they had chosen
good
such a
text,
weak
Rufus.
It's a great text. And remember the Coburn thing. You know, people said that I couldn't win as an outsider in the committee vote. People said I couldn't win as an outsider against Lizzie Coburn because she had $1.4 million when I walked in with zero and I won. I find it interesting. I've won a lot in my life. If you want to bet against me, go for it. You know, if you want to try to short Denver Riggleman, do your thing. But it's not going to work. I'm going to win this, and then I'm going to win the general, and I'm going to be here in the second term, and I'm going to serve the 5th. People need to know in the 5th District, I'm the 5th congressman in 12 years. The chaos in the 5th really results from a broken political system. And at some point, we got to have primaries, and we have to be able to register as a party, and we have to have people who run for service, not for money.
We have got to get rid of these corrupt convention nominating process. I mean, we just see it over and over and over again. But the one in the 5th is unbelievable, threatening to sue people for $50,000 if they vote a certain way. People on the executive committee that they put on payroll, that's basically called Graft, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this is like the way the mafia runs the streets. It's kind of shocking.
Well,
that,
Bob is from New Jersey.
Something. I mean, this is like a mafioso operation, right? You get money to, you get money to vote a certain way. It's like the old boss tweet thing, pay me and I'll deliver votes. I mean, think about it. Just anybody out there that's not in the 5th District. I mean, think about this. You have executive committee members that have a say in the nominating process. They are paid staff from the Bob Good campaign. So they get a check every week. Obviously, they're going to vote to do whatever Bob Good wants. Yet they're elected to serve in an executive role as a unit chair or something of that nature, and they're not recusing themselves. Unbelievable. I got to go. Denver Riggleman, thanks for being with us. I really
no problem.
appreciate it.
Thanks for what you do, John.
Okay.